So today's lesson we're going to be reading and annotating an unseen poem, and our learning objective for today is to explore how the poet presents the process of growing up through the use of a humorous tone and an extended metaphor. Now, a humorous tone is a funny and sarcastic tone, and it can be a mocking tone as well. So your extended metaphor is a metaphor that runs throughout the poem, and we're going to look at that as we carry on in today's lesson. The vocabulary that you are going to need to remember for today's lesson, and it's versatile, which means you can use it in any poem, in any text. So the ones that you've learnt at the start of this lesson is interior and exterior, and you're definitely going to need these in today's lesson. The other words that I want you to remember and use is volatile, permanent, ephemeral and vulnerable. These are words that you will have learnt previously in other poems, and you are going to need them in today's lesson. So volatile means when something changes rapidly and is unpredictable. Permanent is something that lasts for a long time. Ephemeral is the complete opposite of permanent. Okay, it's something that doesn't last. And vulnerable is when you're exposed to something that could attack you or hurt you. You could put yourself in a vulnerable situation, or somebody else could put you in a vulnerable situation. So these are the vocabulary that you are going to need in today's lesson. So if you haven't got these down yet, please press pause and get these down in your class notebook. What we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the quotes out of this in detail now and annotate them as we go. So if we look at the first quote and we go back to our question that we had, so how does the poet present the idea of growing up in kids? Well, first of all, let's start to think that actually in kids, when we think we've grown up, have we actually grown up, or do we just assume that we have? Have we still got a lot to learn? Are we still really vulnerable? So let's have a look at the word ditched. Okay, so if we look at this word ditched to start with, we can see I've put, what does the word ditched mean? So I've drawn it here. My drawings aren't very good, but you can see I've drawn a hand and I've said getting dropped. So somebody just drops you. So somebody that you thought cared about you just ditches you, drops you. Okay, so here I want you to answer these two questions. This one first for me, and you can pause at any point. What does the word ditched mean? So give me two things that the word ditched means. And then when you've done that, I want you to think about this. What does this tell us about the character of Batman? So what does it show us? Was he really a hero? Remember what we was discussing, all right? Was he really that hero on the internally, or was he on the interior? Was he a different kind of person? If he can just ditch someone, okay, if he can just drop them. So write them ideas down. And then I want you to think about this one. So what emotion might the narrator, our narrator is Robin at the moment, feel about being ditched? So how might he feel about being ditched at this point? Remember, at the beginning, he was very passive, okay? He wasn't standing on his own 2 feet. He was used to living in the shadow of Batman. So how might he feel at this point about being ditched right at the beginning? Then think about this one. On the interior, the narrator might be feeling, so internally he might be feeling one thing, okay, so inside he might be feeling another, but sometimes in life we don't always show what we're feeling on the inside. We put a front on, we put a veneer on, okay, so we put like a mask over ourselves, that veneer, so nobody can actually see what we're actually feeling on the exterior. So, however, on the exterior, he may be showing, what might he be showing to people? So internally he might be feeling two things, but on the exterior he may be showing something else. So give me 2 points again. Remember, you can pause at any point here when you are going through the poem. And I want you to then think about this. Who was the narrator in conflict with? So was he in conflict just with Batman? Was he in conflict with somebody else? Remember, the narrator can symbolically represent somebody else. So think about, who was he in conflict with? And think about people when they are growing up. Who do you come in conflict with? So what conflicts have you gone through with people as you're growing up? Is it just people that you see in society, or do you get in conflict with yourself internally? Think about these things, okay, as you go through it. And then once you've done that, what we're going to do next is we're going to look at the next quotation. Okay, so the next quotation that we're going to look at is this one. Okay, and it says, "Well, I turned the corner." Okay, so we've got a pause here. So these 3 dots is a caesura, and it's a pause. Okay, and this is really significant. Then you've got your verb. This is a verb, and you've got it turned. Okay, and then you've got the word corner. Okay, and in this quote, I thought, well, actually, if you turn a corner, before you go round the corner, can you see what's round that corner? Do you know what's there? Think about which vocabulary that I've put at the beginning of this lesson that you could use and tell me that actually you can't see what's round a corner. So really think about the vocabulary that you could start to use. So I want you to answer this question. Why do you think that the poet has used the caesura here? Remember what I told you about this, if you look back at your poem that you've annotated and think about why did he pause at this point? So why do you think the poet has used the caesura here? Write me 2 things down. Okay. The pause created by the poet shows the narrator feels. How does the narrator feel at this point? Has it changed from the start? Is he no longer willing to be passive? Is he ready to change? Think about that. So how does the pause created by the poet show how the narrator feels at this point? 2 things that it shows about how he feels. Now we're going to zoom in on the word in our quote, turned. If you turn, what do you do? Write me 2 things down that you do when you turn. What is the verb turned showing then about the narrator at this point in the poem? What is he ready to turn away from, walk away from? What is it showing then about the poet? Sorry, not the poet. What is it showing about the narrator at this point in the text? So write me 2 things down. The verb turned is showing about the narrator at this point in the poem. Once you've done that, then think about this. The fact that the narrator can't see what is around the corner makes him what? And I've put plus versatile vocabulary. You must put a word in here out of your versatile vocabulary to help you. Okay? So by him not knowing what's around the corner, it makes him something. Okay? Then I want you to think about what could the corner represent. So what could the corner represent? It could symbolically represent something in the narrator's life. What could that corner represent? Okay, so 2 things that this corner, him going round it, could represent. Okay, remember what I told you about the point in the poem where there's a crucial part and I called it something. So think about what we said when we was annotating the poem. And then I've put, what does this show about the narrator at this point? So what does it show us about the narrator at this point in the poem? How is he feeling? What emotions is he feeling? Is he becoming stronger? Is he becoming weaker? What kind of person is he becoming, and what does it show us about him and how he's feeling? And then I want you to do this one. Why did the poet select the everyday image of a corner? Why did he select that everyday image? Think about growing up, okay? Why did he select that image of the corner rather than another image? Okay, and write down 2 reasons why you think he selected that image, and always link it back to that question about why and how he presents growing up. Okay, think sometimes growing up can be difficult as well. Okay, so why did he show us that that different ID, not a different image, but it showed us the image of the corner rather than anything else. Okay, now we're going to look at our next quote, which is, he was like a father to me. So straight away when I looked at this quote, I looked at the word was. Was straight away is, it's past. It's past tense. So this no longer is the case. Robin, our narrator, doesn't feel like he's a father to him anymore. He's let him down. He's ditched him. He's got rid of him. So he's feeling, obviously, angry, frustrated. And the fact that he's just done it out of the blue, so he's being very volatile when he's done it, he's just dropped him. He doesn't feel, he feels like, maybe feels angry, does Robin. So I want you to think now, give me 2 adjectives that describe a father. So what 2 things, 2 adjectives can you give me that would describe a father? Okay, and then I want you to think about this. So what does a father normally symbolise? So if I gave you one and I said a father for me would normally symbolise, they would normally symbolise safety. That's what they would normally symbolise for me. Give me another thing that a father could symbolise to you. Okay, so think about what a father could symbolise and how different Batman actually was to this. Why has the writer used this simile to compare the relationship? So why did he choose that simile, this one, rather than any other simile, okay, compared to he was like a father? So why did he show that? Why did he need to use that simile? So write your 2 ideas down here why he used that specific simile. Okay, remember you can pause at any time. What is the contrast / conflict here? So what conflict is going on with the narrator here? Okay, or there might be 2 different kinds of conflict going on. Okay, so think about your versatile vocabulary to help it here, to write your answers in. There might be 2 different kinds of conflict going on, or a contrast going on here, and think about adding them in there, what you could think about. Okay, so ideas about how he's feeling on the outside, how he's feeling on the inside, who is he in conflict with. All right, so think about using them ideas to get them down at this point. Then we move on to this. So the relationship between the narrator, sorry, I've made an error here, so the relationship between the narrator and Batman was something. I want you to add a versatile vocabulary word here. What was it? Okay, what word could you use from the beginning of the lesson there? So the relationship between the narrator and Batman was something. Now we're going to look at our next quotation. I'm not playing ball boy any longer. Okay, so here he's really starting to take control even more. He's becoming more and more active from what he was like at the beginning. He was very passive. Now he's taking more control. I'm not playing ball boy any longer. Here I want you to think about this. What do we mean when we say an actor plays? Okay, so think about what an actor does and why an actor actually acts something. Okay, why do they get involved in playing, being an actor, okay, or acting things out? There's a reason for that, isn't there? In comparison to this, what do we mean when we say a sports person plays? So what's the difference between an actor doing something, playing it, and a sports person playing it? Very, very different, okay? So when we look at this quote, the ball boy quote, inside it, a ball boy is someone that runs around after someone else. They play second fiddle. They live in somebody else's shadow, okay? They're not superior to that other person, so they will be there like dog's body. They will carry, they will fetch for them, they will do as they are told, okay? This can be in sport, in tennis. You have a ball boy. They go collect the balls and get water and do things like a person would for the person that's a tennis player. Okay, this is sometimes the case in a father and a child relationship. They feel like they are their second fiddle when they say, oh, go fetch me this, can you do this for me, will you go running like that? Is that kind of idea. Okay, when you're the idea of being a ball boy is someone that is like the second fiddle, living in someone else's shadow, okay, all the time. And that again links into that extended metaphor of when you are inferior to somebody else, you will live in their shadow, whether that is because you are a sidekick like Robin is to Batman, or you are a child because you are younger than the father, and the father is more mature and more sensible than the child. So is it that kind of element? So I want you to think about this one now. Is a boy superior or inferior? And think about what he's saying, because he says, I am no longer a ball boy. And he refers to himself again as a boy. Okay? And then I want you to think about this. What is the narrator refusing to do now? What is he refusing to do? So write me 2 things down that he is now refusing to do. Okay? And then the last bit for this quotation, how does the narrator feel about being reduced? How does he feel? So 2 things about how he feels about being reduced. So made to feel worthless, made to feel like he is nothing really. How does this quote show how he feels about being reduced? So write me 2 things down. Okay. Our next quote that we're going to do is, I'm taller, harder, stronger and older. And if you remember in our poem, when we looked at it, I said that this quote shows his physical changes on the exterior, and it can also show some interior changes, so internal changes within him, what has happened internally, okay, so mentally as well as physically. So let's have a look at this. I've said, how do these adjectives show how the narrator wants to be seen? How does he want to be perceived? How does he want to be seen within society? So write these down, write 2 things about how these adjectives, these kind of ideas, what does it make us think that he wants to be seen like? And these are superlatives, so think about that. What do they show us? Then I put, what 2 versatile vocabulary words could you use to explore this quote? So again, linking back to our versatile vocabulary, think about what 2 words you could use to help you explain this quote very clearly. And write them down here. Okay? So he believes, does Robin, that he has changed, and he's taught, and the poet's shown us that as Armitage through the physical description and through the listings of the superlatives here. Okay? And then right at the end, our last quote that we're going to look at for today's lesson, it says, you baby, now I'm the real boy wonder. So here, this quote, we can look at here, it uses the word baby. So first of all, I want you to write down, what is a baby? What is a baby? So 2 things that you think is a baby. Okay. And then 2 things about what can't a baby do. So what can't a baby do? Write 2 things down that a baby cannot do. So can a baby just get up and go and dress itself? Can a baby take control of a situation? Think about the things that a baby cannot do, okay, that an adult can. And then I've put, what does this word show about Batman? So what does it show about the way Batman behaved, alright, or what does it show about the way Robin believes Batman has behaved? So what does this word show about Batman? And then the next question is, why does the narrator spitefully call him this? So why does he call him this? You. Why does he call him you baby? Okay. Why does he call him this? And why is he so spitefully calling him it? Okay. Spitefully means when you are being nasty, okay, and not nice to someone, or you just feeling really angry with them and you're being spiteful towards them. So he's been mean, okay, and nasty towards him when he says this. But why does the narrator spitefully call him this? Think about that. And then think about, why does the narrator, Robin, want us to know this? Why does he want us to know that he's calling him this? Maybe, I don't know, he didn't feel confident enough to call him it before. He felt vulnerable. He felt under pressure. There's lots of reasons. Why does the narrator, you put your reasons down, why does the narrator want us to know this, that he calls him and says, you baby? Okay, why does he say that? And then I've put, what does the noun boy show about the narrator, Robin, at the end of the poem? So what does it show? So if we go back up to our quote, he then says, I'm the real boy wonder. He's still referring to himself as a boy. Okay, so why does he still refer to himself as a boy? Use this versatile vocabulary again to help you at this point. So think about, why does he still call himself a boy at the end? And try and use your versatile vocabulary here to help you with your answers. Okay, remember you can pause at any point. And then I want you to think about this. Why has the poet used the direct address of you, at the end? What is it showing? Remember at the beginning of the poem, he was passive. Okay, what is it showing? What is the poet showing by allowing the narrator to say, you baby? Okay, why has he used that direct address of you? Write it down here, please. Okay, and the last little bit we're going to do is just finishing the quotations off. That quotation. So we're still looking at the same quotation when he says, you baby, I am the real boy wonder. I want you to think about, how is humour being used in that quotation when he says, you baby, now I'm the real boy wonder? So write me two things down. How is this quote humorous? All right, think about think about how we're using humour here. Okay, and then I want you to think about, how is there also a serious tone at the end? Okay, how is there a serious tone still at the end? Okay, so think about how there's a humorous tone and how there's also a serious tone at the end. So two things to show me that there's a humorous tone, but also throughout there is a serious tone as well. Okay, think of the serious tone that's going throughout it, as well as that mocking and frustrated tone. So there's two kinds of tones that we can look at throughout this poem, and give me two for each, please. And then I want you to think about this. The narrator wants this change to be a something, not something. Okay, so use your versatile vocabulary. So Robin, the narrator, wants the change that's happened to him to be something and not something. So use that versatile vocabulary. So the poem is about the growing up, okay, and developing as a person, but you come into conflict with certain individuals as we go throughout it. So again, if we go back right to the beginning of our lesson and we look at our quotation, our question, it was, how does the poet present the idea of growing up in kids? So is it easy growing up, or is it hard? Think about this. You should now be able to answer this question. How does the poet present the idea of growing up in kids?